Hello everyone. My third leadership artifact began as a collaborative military readiness initiative. However, it ultimately became something different. Rather than evaluating the success of a completed artifact, this experience challenged me to defend the leadership decisions I made when implementation became impossible. This presentation explains this process. The original plan was to support Commander Naval Surface Group Southwest Fitness Enhancement Program through 3 integrated components: a progressive workout, 2 educational sessions, and ongoing collaboration with the Command Fitness Leader and Assistant Command Fitness Leaders. Together, these efforts were designed to improve readiness by reducing injury risk. I intentionally selected sailors enrolled in the Fitness Enhancement Program, which typically represents about 5 to 15% of the command's total personnel. With being out of regs, they represent a population at increased risk for musculoskeletal injury, deconditioning, and reduced readiness. I wanted to prioritize gradual progression, recovery, and long-term behavior change. One of my earliest leadership decisions was choosing an applied leadership experience. I wanted to work directly with military leaders inside an operational environment where collaboration, implementation, and real-world uncertainty would shape the experience. I felt this was an important last step in representation across artifacts for my portfolio. Every decision was informed by prior experience as a Navy fitness specialist and current experience at Wounded Warrior Project, as well as professional certifications, current research on sleep, stress, nutrition, injury prevention, and continuous collaboration with the CFL and ACFL team. Leadership decisions were grounded in both evidence and operational context. After proposal approval, implementation began as expected. I met with the CFL and ACFLs to develop the first 4 weeks of 12 of exercise programming, establish educational timelines, and align responsibilities. At this point, everything suggested the artifact would move forward according to plan. Only days later, implementation was put on pause. The physical fitness assessment cycle had not closed, operational commitments increased, leadership transitioned, and the command delayed the entire fitness enhancement program. Suddenly, the timeline was no longer within my control, and the CFL could not provide me with a concrete start date. This became the true leadership challenge. Multiple stakeholders had legitimate priorities: the command leadership, the command fitness leaders, sailors, and my doctoral timeline. Implementation uncertainty forced me to decide whether to abandon the artifact or continue supporting the partnership and adjust how I viewed leadership and this artifact. I chose to remain committed to the partnership despite uncertainty instead of selecting a different artifact that could be completed more quickly. This decision prioritized long-term relationships with the command and organizational integrity over immediate academic completion. This built value and trust within the relationship. Rather than abandoning the artifact, we put it on hold until implementation was possible. We saved all the materials that were created for future use. We continue weekly check-ins as a group to ensure we kept each other looped in on next steps and timelines. Although we still do not have a concrete timeline, communication continues within the group. Although participant outcomes were unavailable, meaningful implementation evidence still emerged. Collaborative planning, continuous communication, leadership adaptability, and relationship development all became evidence of leadership despite the absence of completed implementation or participant success. Every leadership decision involves trade-offs. Remaining committed and continuing communication strengthen trust, collaboration, and long-term partnerships, but limited participant-level implementation outcomes and both quantitative and qualitative measurable evaluation data within the portfolio timeline. Leadership also expanded beyond the original artifact after an unexpected opportunity. Following my presentation at TopCon, I connected with the 11th Air Division Artillery Brigade Holistic Health and Fitness team at Fort Bliss, creating a new opportunity to collaborate on military health programming. What began as a conference conversation evolved into multidisciplinary planning meetings with the H2F team focused on creating cohort-based educational programming connecting soldiers with Wounded Warrior Project resources. Leadership extended beyond one artifact into broader organizational collaboration, still with active duty. This became the defining lesson of this leadership experience. Planning assumes predictability. Implementation exposes the realities of complex systems and obstacles. Leadership is not demonstrated when everything proceeds according to plan, but when circumstances require adaptation without losing direction and relationships. This leadership approach works well in collaborative environments where trust exists and implementation depends on multiple stakeholders. Military organizations, healthcare systems, and interdisciplinary teams benefit from leaders who remain adaptable while preserving relationships and showing up for one another with a shared goal. This approach is not universal. Situations requiring immediate implementation, fixed deadlines with no flexibility, or limited stakeholder trust may require more directive leadership. Effective leadership requires adapting to context, situations, personnel, and environment rather than relying on one consistent style. Before this experience, I often associated leadership success with completed implementation and successful outcome values. Now I recognize leadership is equally demonstrated through sound decisions, adaptability, stewardship of relationships, and remaining committed despite uncertainty in situations. Throughout my portfolio, scholarship explained readiness, teaching translated readiness, and leadership demonstrated readiness. Organizational readiness depends not only on evidence-based programs, but also on leaders who can sustain partnerships and adapt implementation when circumstances change. As this portfolio concludes, my greatest leadership lesson is that implementation does not always unfold as planned. What remains within our control is the quality of our decisions, our commitment to professional relationships, and our willingness to adapt while remaining focused on long-term organizational impact. Thank you.